Speeches have the power to change people's lives if we're courageous enough to share them.
Welcome to Daily Power Boost, Ignite Your Potential, the podcast where your transformation begins. I'm Sean Michael, and each day I'll bring you quick, impactful insights and action steps to fuel your personal and professional growth. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a leader, or someone ready to break limits and ignite greatness, this is your Daily Power Boost to crush obstacles, stay focused, and awaken the extraordinary potential within you. Because remember, greatness begins within. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Daily Power Boost. I'm Sean Michael, and I'm excited to welcome to Beyond the Boost today, Jenn Espinosa-Goswami, who is a public speaking coach, right, Jen?
Correct.
And I will let her do her magic and introduce herself more fully.
Well, hello, listeners, new friends, folks who are all about that daily power boost. As Sean mentioned, my name is Jen, but what you may not know about me is I'm a Midwest girl who grew up in Wisconsin, currently lives in Minneapolis, and about 15 years ago, I decided to quit corporate and make a thing of public speaking. So my passion at the time through Toastmasters and other adventures with public speaking taught me that I have a bit of a knack and a gift for public speaking. And I realized that this is something that people could turn into a career. So that's why Weightless was born, which is the name of my company. And I started sharing my story of losing 100 pounds on stages, mostly in-person stages at the time, because that was quite a while ago. But over the pandemic, I was fortunate to speak on many virtual stages as well. And I continue to support both live and virtual stages. I no longer speak about my health story, although if you Google my name, you can find all sorts of videos and spots that I've been on, like Women's Health and Reader's Digest and things like that. Very fortunate to have received those types of features. But currently, I help business owners and people who are passionate about their message grow their impact and income through public speaking, whether that's stages or even just podcast episodes such as this one.
All right. So, talking about, like, you kind of covered it. What would you say was the catalyst that really launched you on that path of speaking?
It was when I started talking about something that I was a little bit uncomfortable talking about. So back in my Toastmasters days, we got to choose the content for our speeches. And excuse me, if you're not familiar, Toastmasters gives people an opportunity to present a 5 to 7 minute presentation during our meetings. And we met every week. And I was running out of topics to talk about, Sean. Like, I was talking about what I was doing at work. I was talking about things in my family life, but I was wondering, okay, what comes next? And I decided, well, what if I talk about how I used to be morbidly obese as a kid? And I was like, well, that's kind of embarrassing, and I don't really know. So I said, well, maybe I just talk about this person that I called the loser and weave a story around her experience of being bullied and what it felt like to be a loser, in a metaphorical sense, not in the literal sense. People called her a loser. She was bullied. She did not have a good experience. But by the end of it, she revealed that, oh, she also was able to drop 100 pounds in 1 year. And after I delivered that speech, again, I was being a little bit vulnerable there, and it was something I was not comfortable talking about. None of these people knew me when I was morbidly obese. My mentor came up to me. Her name is Siobhan, and she said, Jen, that was amazing. You have inspired me to change my life. And that was when I realized, oh, speeches have the power to change people's lives if we're courageous enough to share them.
Yeah, and that really is powerful when someone comes up to you and either directly shares, like, your speech inspired me to change my life. I had somebody once I was talking to, he's like, I'm talking to you from Malaysia. And I'm like, yeah? He's like, yeah, you inspired me to enjoy my life more. He's like, I'm retired. I got no obligations. So I just booked a last minute vacation to Malaysia. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's awesome. I want to go to Malaysia.
It was like, wow, okay. I had no idea I had such an impact. And as you said, it's from being honest. But I love the way you said bringing up this uncomfortable part of your life. I recently heard another speaking coach talk about this. Like, if you're feeling nervous before speaking, you can tell a story, like in a third person perspective, about somebody feeling anxious or nervous and working through the situation, and you'll find that you suddenly aren't so nervous anymore. And it might be your own story, but it's told more metaphorically, or names changed to protect the innocent. So what got you started? So you were working in corporate, you started going to Toastmasters. What led you to Toastmasters in the first place?
Yeah, so my corporate job, straight out of college, and I graduated with a degree in global studies. So I didn't intend to end up in the mortgage industry. I started in production in the mortgage industry. At that time, I was in correspondence. If you're in mortgage, you know what I'm talking about. And eventually I got to a place where I became a fraud analyst. So I was investigating both internal and external mortgage fraud, transactions, and determining who the players were within these transactions. The intention was to collect as much evidence as I could, document it, and then share it with FBI, CIA, local law enforcement. So it was really interesting, fun work. But one year, my manager said, "Hey, Jen, you need to set something for your improvement, for your performance. What is one thing you want to work on this year?" And I had already kind of extended myself as far as I could do through fraud investigations. I was a certified fraud examiner, so I already took that test. I did all of those things. I had the experience in my job. So I'm like, okay, what else can I do? Luckily, there was a group on site at my workplace where they were doing Toastmasters. And I said, well, I did a little bit of public speaking in college. When I came back from my study abroad experience, I was an ambassador for the study abroad experience, and I visited the most classrooms of anybody in my program, just promoting and advocating the study abroad experience for college students. So I'm like, okay, I'm not terribly uncomfortable with public speaking, and because my job did not require me to talk to a single individual, I basically made love to my computer every single day and didn't have to talk to a human being ever. Maybe AI would have been really helpful back then. But I'm like, okay, I need some more interaction. I need to express myself in a different way than just through writing and case documentation and things like that. So let's give this a go.
Very cool. And as you said, that led to telling your story, the uncomfortable parts, to get vulnerable, and getting that spark of somebody saying, that story inspired me. And you caught the bug, yeah?
I caught the bug. Yes, that's true.
Tell me more about the inspiration for, I kind of have an idea, the inspiration for the company name, Weightless, and how that connects to what you do today.
I love that you asked this question, because some people get confused when they connect with me today. To be fair, when I pivoted out of health coaching into public speaking coaching, I did it very messily. I did it the imperfect way, which means I kept all my old branding, but I see that connection here. So let's break it down. What is the connection between weightless and public speaking? So when I was working with people on their health goals, what I was realizing was it wasn't a matter of what to do or how to do it. Most people already have that information. They just don't implement it very well. And as we got down to the bottom of why aren't folks implementing what they know to be true and what has possibly worked for them before, is a lack of confidence. People don't believe that they can do amazing things, either because they have a history of not achieving it or because they've never achieved it before, so they have no reason to believe in themselves. And so there's a lack of confidence there. The same is true when it comes to public speaking. A lot of people are afraid of presenting to a group of people, or they never have done that before. And so there's a lack of confidence. And so weightless is this idea of you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You don't have to carry that fear of breaking outside of what you think you can do. anything is possible if you have that confidence to take that courageous action. So, and Weightless is also a celebration. Part of the work I do with coaching clients is I believe in celebrating your progress, even if it's the smallest step you can take that next stage. Maybe it's you rehearse your speech. Maybe it's you develop a signature speech. Maybe it's you say yes to speaking 10 minutes at your next work meeting. These are all courageous steps you could take to remove the weight off of the world from your shoulders and to become, in effect, weightless. Gravity is carrying you away up into a higher potential for yourself.
Yeah, and I totally see that with the balloons kind of lifting, and it's almost like you listen to all the episodes, because all the things you mentioned are things I've talked about, celebrating those small wins, taking that one step, right? It starts a snowball effect. You take that one step, and then the next step gets a little easier, and then the next step gets a little easier, and before you know it, you're kind of floating away. In a sense.
It's like that movie Wicked, right? There's a song called Defying Gravity. Anything is possible. You can defy gravity. You can fly. You can float. But you got to take that first step.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, with the health coaching and with any kind of coaching, I think especially today, like you said, AI, information is everywhere. There's a billion, trillion, I don't know how many videos on YouTube today that will teach you about anything you want to know. We are not struggling because of a lack of knowledge. Like, people know. They know I need to do more exercise. I need to eat healthier. I need to embrace my value, etc. But we don't, because of all the junk that we've got. Like, you illustrated it perfectly. And there's a song that I listened to that really charged me up. And the video for it shows the guy's carrying all these bags. And it's doubt and fear and, all the junk people carry. And as the song progresses, he's walking forward in the video, and the bags are dropping one by one, so that when he gets to the end of the video, he's got no more weight on him. So it's a perfect illustration.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful illustration.
And when you were talking about this fear, I'm not talking about standing up in front of an audience of thousands. We're talking about people who are terrified to share the annual report with their team, right? I heard a statistic. I don't remember the numbers, but basically, people are more afraid of public speaking than they are afraid of dying in general. Have you heard that statistic?
I've heard it. I've actually heard it's a misquote of something else, and I can't uncover the true quote that it was inspired by. I think most of us, if we had to choose being in a grave or being behind a microphone, I think we would choose the microphone. I
think you're right.
The will to live is strong. And I think it's true also that we have different ways of interpreting public speaking, right? For, like you mentioned, there could be people in corporate or in nonprofit and government who are just trying to present, a 5-minute case study during the course of their regular meetings. And these are people they see all of the time. That could be an example of public speaking. Another example of public speaking could be you're presenting to 100,000 people in a stadium. Those are there's a huge spectrum of different public speaking opportunities in between there. But I think it's important to understand that when you put yourself out there about something you're passionate about, something you have a lot of knowledge about, you're being exposed to potential critics and trolls and people who disagree with you, hecklers, and all of those kinds of situations, even though most of the people in the audience are our friends, or at least don't want to see us mess up. So that's what I like to tell people who are nervous about presenting, is most people in that audience are friendly, or at least neutral. They certainly don't want to see you fall flat on your face, which happens to some people. You trip up the stairs, or things happen, your tech fails, and suddenly you don't know what to do, most people will be on your side. In fact, that creates a lot of human connection during that mess up.
Right. The challenges tend to bring us closer together, and you find support in areas you never would have imagined.
Very true.
All right. So, what are some ways you work with clients to help them feel more weightless about speaking in whatever capacity they need to speak?
Yeah. Well, one of my clients, Michelle, she's an amazing human being. She's a life coach. She was working on her book for, I think, upwards of 12 years. It took her a while to get through the writing process, to determine who she was writing it for. And she was doing this pre-pandemic, and she finished and published her book probably 1 year after the pandemic was lifted. So she'd been spending a lot of time huddled in her closet or huddled in her little corner, writing her story and her message. And this was like a capstone moment for her. And she told me, Jenn, I want to share this. I want to sell this book. I want to get this book into as many hands as I possibly can. So what does that mean? That means a book launch. That means doing a presentation of the importance of this. And so I assisted her with that. Like, how do you go from a very introverted, stuck in your closet, writing the things, to suddenly publicly sharing how important this is to you in front of your friends and family at a book launch? And since that time, she has been taking the stage more and more consistently. She jumped into social media, video content. She's got a presentation next month. She had one last month. So she went from speaking nowhere to speaking all of the time and getting her book into as many hands as possible. So that's one example. Another client of mine, Steve, I worked with him like 7 years ago or so, like quite a while ago. So sometimes people, when they want to speak, they don't really know how that's going to play out. Mm-hmm. So when I worked with Steve, I was working with him on a signature speech. And he's currently delivering a version of that same signature speech, at least the main ideas behind that speech that we talked about years ago. He's getting paid $5,000, $10,000, maybe $15,000 by now. I don't know. He's really killing it out in the space, but he's a professional speaker and he travels. You know, I'm in Minnesota here, but he travels all over the country delivering this message. And he also published his book after the time we worked together. So everything from the speech creation and being confident to find those stages to getting paid thousands of dollars to deliver your message and still talk about whatever programs and services you offer. So Quite a wide range of folks I assist.
Well, and as you were talking about both of these people, without some guidance, some coaching, the impact wouldn't be there, right? By being able to get out and promote her book, she can touch more lives. She can get that information into more people's minds. Steve can travel around the world and make an impact. And isn't that what we all want to do? I mean, a lot of us want to have an impact in the world. We want to, what will the world say of me when I'm gone? Did I have an impact? Is there some type of legacy that continues on? And that's powerful. Yeah, it's great, make 5, 10, 15,000 for a 20-minute, 30-minute speech. Who wouldn't want that? But I know for me, impact is the first thing. To hear about change and shifts in people's lives, or saying that, go, oh, I never thought of it that way. Right? It's powerful. Like I said, I'm winging this. So, well, even my own journey of launching this podcast, it was something I thought, okay, this would be good. And my Myers-Briggs personality is the entertainer. So
I didn't know they had like catchphrases for them.
Yeah, the new 16 personalities version of it, they have titles for every variation.
Okay.
They have like the leader. I know. Yeah. So mine's the entertainer.
Do you know what the entertainer is for the letters?
ESFPA.
ESF. Oh, Interesting. I've been an INTJ and an ESTJ, depending on when I tested. I don't know
Right.
what they break down to, though, in terms of leader or entertainer. I have no idea.
Well, afterwards, I can go look and I'll let you know since we're
Okay.
connected offline. Otherwise, um, because I know the site where I took the test, they have the whole guide that's publicly available and you can see what the titles are, get all the details. Because they took Myers Briggs. Because the Myers Briggs has really been around for a long time and they amplified it, they expanded it a lot.
Got it.
They built on top of it to make it even deeper. So I was like, okay, podcast, I can do that. But the first few were like 3 minutes long, and probably nobody else can hear it, but I can hear my voice shaking because
Audio only is tough sometimes.
audio only, and you're just like, I've done community theater, I've spoken in front of a group, and now I'm talking to a microphone. Got no feedback whatsoever. That's scary. That was a little scary for me because it was something new. And even though I am not usually bothered, confidence, no problem, I would say the fear still comes. It's everywhere. In fact, I was reading in a book that there was a guy, his career was to go around speaking. And he always felt a little nervous before each speech. And he said he'd done it so many times that the nerves went away. Like he didn't feel anything before the speech. And then his career went like that. Can you speak to that from your experience?
I still get nervous before every presentation. Now, here's the thing. The nerves have a life of their own, right? In terms of what you will be nervous about. So this gentleman you're speaking about, whatever his name, let's say he's Dick. So Dick, he got into his zone and he somehow disconnected from his connection with the audience when he was delivering this. Because when you are so close to your content, you can deliver it in your sleep. Like muscle memory takes over when you've been doing what you've been doing that long. And I also have this, like I can deliver the same presentation in 10 minutes, 60 minutes, same presentation. I can do it in my sleep if I need to, because that's the power of a signature speech. But where this gentleman, where Dick was not quite making the mark there, was he wasn't seizing the opportunity to connect with each and every audience he delivers it to. So you can deliver the same content, but you customize that content based on your audience's needs. And the needs of your audience change over time because there's a different group of people. There's a different delivery method if you're delivering virtually. You mentioned, Sean, that you struggled speaking to a microphone because suddenly you went from all this feedback from a live audience as in community theater to zero feedback virtually. You're talking to a microphone. The microphone's not going to give you anything but what you're saying back to you. The same is true. So like, it's really when you're presenting, yes, you rehearse, you know your content inside and out. You have a flexible structure to your speech in such a way that you can deliver any amount of time for that speech and still deliver value. But really where the gold lies with professional speakers is how you adapt and flex to the needs of your audience. And that's the customization piece that is done with each and every audience. So that's part of what people don't understand is they're like, okay, well, if this content is good for this audience, the same content will be good for the next audience. Well, not necessarily. And that's part of the journey of as you're getting on more and more stages and getting more comfortable with your content, you're going to find that different audiences resonate with different things, but you'll find the common denominators. And then from there, you can customize other pieces and still have that nervousness of, is this going to work? How is this audience going to enjoy this piece of it? Because at the end of the day, it's not about you.
Right.
Your audience needs to take something from that content. Are you delivering it in such a way that they are able to take something back from that?
Right. Otherwise, they could just pick up the latest book.
Exactly.
Right. And as you were talking more, I totally saw and in my training about confidence and neurolinguistic programming, there's attachment where we're attached to the results.
Mm.
And then we start to feel the emotions like the nervousness, the excitement, whatever. And then there's detachment where maybe because we don't want to deal with the feelings, we just disconnect. And it popped in my head that maybe that's what happened to Dick, is that he'd done it so many times and he had become somewhat robotic, was just delivering the content, detached from it and from his audience. Because I think that was the key, like you said, part of the ability to flex and pivot. You can do the research, you can know, I'm speaking before CEOs, or I'm speaking in front of entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs, and you can adapt ahead of schedule. But I think being engaged and paying attention right there in the moment is extremely valuable.
Absolutely. Don't be like Dick. Don't detach. And I think also it's important to recognize that not every speaker, and this is something I tell my clients all the time, because I work with clients sometimes who have speeches on very difficult topics: domestic abuse, survivorship from various addictions and or suicide, things like that. People who are talking about very emotional, very difficult topics. Now, you don't have to have a very personal topic that you're talking about. That could be your signature story, but it may not be your signature speech. And here's why. It's important to have that emotional connection with your audience. And if you have anything unprocessed around that experience for you, you may not be able to allow the audience to see the example for themselves if you're still in the emotions of it. So in some ways, I would advocate that detaching can be okay from certain pieces of the story, but nobody's saying that you have to go up there and just talk about yourself. That's not the purpose. Instead, you can share other examples that maybe aren't as raw for you as a person. So it's absolutely okay to detach from certain emotions if they're too close to trauma you've experienced in the past. And some speakers have had this happen. So it's okay. I've been in front of people who start crying in the middle of their presentation. Now, it had a huge emotional connection with the audience, and I can't remember a single thing that they shared with me other than the fact that they ended up crying in front of all of us. So it was a great human moment. And as speakers, we want those human moments, but we also want to make sure that there's something that people remember from that other than the emotional element there. So I just want to put that out there, because
No, that's
detaching.
an excellent point.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point, especially the part about, showing that true, like totally having an emotional reaction as you're giving the speech. It's nice because it makes a connection, but if the whole message is lost in that, it's not very effective. Not if you're trying to deliver this message. Yes, we want to connect, but there's also a message we want to deliver. Right? There's a point to the presentation, the speech. And
Absolutely. I mean, I've had audience members cry in front of me, and it surprised me because I wasn't expecting that reaction. And maybe this says more about me than it says about what I was delivering or my audience members, but I would prefer for my audience to feel that connected to what I'm sharing than to have them watch me cry on stage.
Right. Yeah, because that connects them, but you're still delivering your message.
Yes.
And the purpose of your talk, which is a key part of preparation, right? Is audience, purpose, right? Why are you talking?
This is a sticky point for a lot of speakers. I certainly struggled with this in the beginning, but like everyone keeps asking you, who are you going to bring this to? Who is your audience? And honestly, in the beginning, you probably don't know, because you've never tried speaking and sharing that particular message in front of different audiences. So you don't really know. You're flying blind, right? You don't really know who's going to resonate most with that topic. But you just have to choose a lane. You just have to be like, okay, I want to deliver this to corporate America who are struggling with burnout. They're C-level executives and they really need stress management situation. They need to learn techniques for that. And often we choose a lane of people who are similar to who we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I speak to corporate people, but I also speak to entrepreneurs. So I'm comfortable speaking to either one of those audiences, but I also speak to government folks. I speak to association folks. So finding what's important for that audience is how you answer the question, who do you speak to? Because the struggle that people in corporate America are having is very different from the struggle people in government work are having right now. So being cognizant of what problems are you solving for that particular audience will tell you who you need to deliver that message to.
Yeah, very true. And again, this kind of circles back to that connection, right? And I was sharing with you before, I had a vision of who I was trying to reach. And when I look at the analytics, that's the advantage of a podcast, is you get some analytics, you get some details. It's not who I thought. It's very revealing. Like you like kind of like you're sharing about audience members crying. You're like, okay, didn't expect that. That brings up a great question, Jen. So as a speaker, and you get a reaction that's kind of surprising like that, how do you ensure that you can stay on track and that it doesn't? Because I know sometimes for some people, if they see someone else crying, it's contagious, right? It can be contagious.
Yeah, well, as I put myself back in those shoes that day, I can't say that I handled it well. I paused in the middle of my presentation because it was someone sitting in my front row. I had just met this person that day, so I didn't really know her story or her background or anything personally about her. I just know she was sitting in the front row and she was crying. Now, it's important for me to make my audience feel comfortable. So I knew that it might embarrass her if I was to call it out publicly, like, oh, hey, I noticed you're crying, Judy. Is everything okay? I'm not going to do that and call her out in front of her friends and colleagues and folks in that room. There were like 100 people in the room. So I paused for me to catch my thoughts, for her to catch up to and process through whatever she was doing. And that's another thing when it comes to presentation skills. I'm a fast talker. So sometimes, if you're a fast talker as well, you need to pause, not just for yourself. Maybe you forgot what you were talking about or you went on a tangent. It's a good time to pause. And it allows your audience to catch up to you as well. So in that moment, I paused as I was furiously thinking in my mind, should I say something? What should I do? I didn't say anything to her, of course, in that moment because I didn't want to embarrass her. I paused, let it sit for a little bit, and moved on with the content that I was delivering. Now, I mentioned that people usually didn't cry in this piece of the presentation, so I completed the rest of the presentation. But I'm a human being, and I care about my people in my audience, so I walked up to her afterwards, and I just made sure she was okay. Whatever was coming up for her it was her business. She didn't certainly have to share anything with me about what was coming up for her, but I did check in on her because one of the things that's really important to me is building that trust with an audience member. So sometimes you'll see this where you're at an event, and this has happened in comedy shows where the comedian might start picking on someone in the audience and will not leave them be. And sometimes it gets to a point where people feel uncomfortable. And I certainly never want anyone in my audience to feel that way. So I might, if they're okay with it and we've met each other beforehand, I might call them out by name during a presentation, but that's not something I would traditionally do. And speakers who do that regularly, you might be making your audience feel a little uncomfortable. And when people feel uncomfortable, they don't like to give you feedback. They also maybe don't like to connect with you, talk with you, just learn more about you. So just putting it out there that you will be caught off guard in your presentation. And in that moment, you have a choice. Do you pause, collect your thoughts? Do you race on ahead? Whatever you do, make sure it's in the service of the people in front of you, because I could have done a lot of different things and maybe I chose the wrong thing that day. But I did feel good about not trying to embarrass her or make her feel like I was, pointing her out in front of people, because I know that would have felt uncomfortable for me.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's all you can do is do your best in the moment. I appreciate what you said, that you still reached out to her more privately just to check in. like not prying, and that's a powerful way. Because I was at a big event and I was in the audience. I wasn't speaking, I was in the audience, and they called for volunteers to share. And like, I just felt really called to stand up and share and got a little emotional, but I wasn't the speaker, so that was okay. And everybody was super supportive. And actually, somebody came to me like in the break time and they said, wow, what you shared, it really touched me. It really impacted me. It unlocked something for me. And I was like, okay, cool. That lights me up when someone
Well,
says,
what a courageous moment.
something
Thank you for
unlocked.
sharing. That's awesome.
Well, I'm much more emotional than most men. In fact, recently I was going through a tough time and I recorded my podcast episode and I had missed one of my days. And I've been pretty good. And since November of 2024, I've missed 4 or 5 days of not publishing an episode. I feel really good about that because sometimes it's like record it, edit it, post it. It's that tight. But I recorded the episode and I had an emotional reaction and I sent a copy to my wife and I'm like, I don't know if I should post this. I don't, I don't want. She's like, post it. No question, post it. It's real, it's raw, it's who you are. Post it. I mean, I didn't come apart, but you could hear that it was, an emotional moment for me.
The fact that you're willing to be vulnerable like that and publish means that you're a step behind or a step in front of other folks who might be like, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that, but I will not expose my inner self like to that level. So I think that's a great testament to your courage to be vulnerable, which I'm sure Brene Brown would have a lot to say around that.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of, so I did cry during one of my speeches, and it was the hardest, most powerful speech I've ever done in my life, was when I spoke at my dad's funeral. I did cry. It would have been very difficult for me not to cry at that time, but I did honor to him and to his life by speaking there, because no one in my family has any interest in, they love him dearly, but nobody was willing to speak up at his funeral. And I knew I wanted to do that because it was like something I could leave for him. It was something I could do to honor him and to share my love for him with my family members I hadn't seen for years. But it was very difficult to do. And I knew that that was kind of a breakthrough moment for me as a speaker, is bridging that gap between having a purpose in your speech and finding the emotion and the vulnerability and not completely breaking down into an emotional breakdown. It was a difficult thing to do, and I don't regret a moment of it.
Right. But a powerful growth moment, I think, for you as a speaker, because I know hitting that publish button was a huge growth moment for me, as well as getting vulnerable on a stage and telling more of my backstory, which brings up an interesting point with vulnerability and sharing more of the uncomfortable stuff, right? That stuff that maybe we've dealt with it, maybe we've worked through it, and in our day-to-day it doesn't affect us, but sharing it is like, I've got this person I trust, they know the story, but sharing it publicly, what I think of it is metered release. Like, you don't have to release the whole everything, right? You can release a little bit, get a little vulnerable, and let it land. And then
I like that.
See how you can, maybe you open up more, maybe you don't. But it reminds me, I'm doing a masterclass on Monday Night Coaching coming up, and I don't know if this episode will publish before that because it's like very soon, and it's about accountability, and it's about hacking that accountability muscle that sometimes, you talked about your client who was writing a book, and it was a lot of work to get it written. And a lot of people have this book inside them that they're like, I want to get it out, but they sit down at the computer or they don't sit down at the computer. One of the hacks was open the computer, type one line. That's that little step, right? Or with public speaking, speak to two people at work. Speak to one, right? Start small.
I encourage people to do, Sean, whether they work with me or not. And this works 100% of the time. You want to hear what I encourage them to do?
I'd love to.
I encourage them to find a place, a stage to speak at and book it. So in my area in Minneapolis, there are plenty of networking groups who are always looking for speakers. So they're free speaking, but they're looking for a 15 to 20-minute presentation. All you have to do is provide some information to them. I have found that getting a date on your calendar in which you're going to speak and you have to come up with something awesome is the best way to keep accountable, because suddenly there's a date you're preparing for and then it's more concrete. So the people who don't end up becoming consistent speakers are those who wait to get motivated to speak. And then they're like, where's the stage? I have no idea where the stage is. So sometimes it's even before you've written your speech. If you get a date on the calendar 6 months from now, you're darn well going to write and deliver that speech, because you've got a date looking at you and you got to figure it out. So especially for those people who are neurodivergent, that's the best way to get rolling.
Yeah. And that works so well. I can say from my own experience, I did that. I booked a virtual summit. Like you said, I didn't even know what I was going to speak on. And I was like, actually, like I signed up, I was booked, like, okay, you're in. Okay. Now got to figure out what I'm going to speak on. And I just happened to be reading a book and I'm like, this is perfect, because it's a story that we all deal with. It's a story that I dealt with myself, being a chronic people pleaser. No more, but I used to be a major people pleaser. And the speech was stop being nice. And it was a very small group, but it was powerfully received.
Good for you.
But like you said, you've got a booking. And today, the podcast, the fact that I committed to do a daily episode, at the back of my mind every day, it's like, oh, I'm tired. Nope, I got to get my episode out. It keeps me accountable.
That's also why people block their calendars, right? They block their calendar for free time, because when it's on the calendar, it's in writing. You get a reminder for it. So you can avoid it. You can silence the reminder. You can look away. You can do other things.
But it becomes a little
But when it keeps reminding you, it's one of those things, you're making a commitment. And that's what speaking is. So most of the people I work with, they already know what they're pitching and what they're going to be speaking about. That's your signature speech. But once they get a date on the calendar, suddenly it becomes real in a way that it wasn't before. So if you find yourself procrastinating on anything, definitely that's the best way to get started.
Right. And I just want to say, since you mentioned the P word, procrastination is not that you're lazy. It's much deeper than that. It's something else. And I've talked about it on the podcast. It's something deeper that can be worked through. I always say I'm a recovering procrastinator. I used to proudly say I put the pro in procrastinator. Like, now I'm going, that was silly. It was so silly.
You owned your procrastination, Sean.
I owned
Good for you.
Proudly. So we're at the top of the hour, but there was something else I wanted to share, and you can speak to this, because you talked about that trick, book a date, so you're locked in. So it's a lot harder to quit on yourself. Because that, in my opinion, that's what you're doing, is you're quitting on yourself. You have this dream of speaking. Book a date. Book it at a small, less, scary. That's so I was trying to find the word. Less scary, a smaller group locally in your town or something. So I got this random email once, Jen. It said, Great American Speak Off. It was competition to speak on 10x stage with Grant Cardone. I'm like, what the heck? I got nothing to lose. Signed up, did the pre-training, actually had coaching because the VIPs got, one-on-one coaching with one of their speaking coaches, like listen to your speech. And that was actually challenging because it was a 1-minute speech. And they specifically said, if you go over a minute, your chances drop. Like you want to nail that 1 minute. That's harder. That I can speak for an hour, no problem. 1 minute, that's challenging.
It's the hardest time to speak. 1 minute, what can you convey? A lot of people don't edit very well.
Anyway, the whole week leading up to it, I was fine. No issue. Like 10 minutes before it's my time slot to go in the room and actually get in line and speak, this massive wave of nerves just comes over me. Like I say wave because it was just like being at the sea and the tidal wave comes over you. And I did 2 things that I remembered from things I'd learned. One was I have a song, it's like my jam, called Here for a Reason. I went in a closet, I blasted that, I screamed at the top of my lungs, and then I used Amy Cuddy's power posing.
So you combine your walk-up song, Here for a Reason would be your walk-up song. So if you were going onto an actual physical stage, that's your pump people up song. That's a Sean's entering the stage kind of thing. And then you prepped yourself. The power pose is actually a grounding pose. So I've actually reviewed Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on my YouTube channel. So if you're curious on hearing, feedback from a speaker coach on how she did, I mean, it's a really classic and one of the most watched TED Talks ever. I commented on some of the things she did really well and some of the things she did less well, but everyone has heard of the power pose, and it's a very powerful position. It's all about taking up space, and that's what you do when you speak. You're taking up space. Audio waves, physical waves, you're taking it all up. So I love that you shared this experience. I'm familiar with that event. I've participated in that event. I've judged other speaking competitions, both for students in colleges and for high school students. It's fun. It's a lot of excitement. There's a room full of people that you don't know anything about, and some of them sound really amazing, and you're like, how can I compete with this? So it sounds like you took care of yourself. You had a pre-speaking ritual that allowed you to shine the way you needed to shine.
Right. And I also went in with my attitude today, hasn't always been that. It's not win or lose. It's win or learn. Whatever I'm doing, I either win, whatever win looks like in the situation, or I learn. One of the F words, and I'm not talking about the ones that get bleeped. I have an F word. I don't even like to say it. It's not part of my vocabulary. You're looking at, do you know which F word I'm talking about?
First attempt in learning?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, I'm familiar. And I'm very comfortable with that because it's day to day when you're an entrepreneur. You know less than you think you know when you try new things. And so it's my best buddy. I go to bed with it every night. I wake up with it every morning. It's always there. And I love to learn. That's my top strength.
It's a friend, not a foe. If we approach it right, that it didn't go the way I wanted it. Okay, what can I learn? What can I change? How do I do it better next time? All right, Jen, I thank you so much for your wisdom and your time. What's the best way for people to find you?
Well, if you Google my name, which is really long, but you can see it in the show notes, Jenn Espinosa-Goswami. I'm Jenn Spingo, Jenn with 2 N's on Instagram. LinkedIn is my favorite hangout, though, so do find me there, especially if you'd love to meet people, the awesome speakers on my network, some of the people I talked about in this episode here. But my primary digital home is weightlesschronicles.com, where you can learn more about my masterclasses on how to create your own speaker booking system. Or if you just like to connect with me, join my email list, hear about all the cool things I'm doing, and connect with me, then join my email list and you can learn all about how to be a better speaker.
Or like she said, her speaker review sessions on YouTube. I've managed to catch at least one of those, and she picks them apart.
They're a little
in
cringe.
A good way, in a good way, you know, like they're because I figure, you know, if you want to learn the ins and outs of what can boost your speaking and what could hurt it, criticism is, if we approach it the right way, it's a good thing, right? I always say, I can't fix it if I don't know it's broke.
Yeah, very true. Can I share a small story with you around
yes.
my TED Talk reviews? So this is funny. I was wondering whether I should send my reviews of these TED Talks. And these are like 10, 15 years ago. So 2009, 2010, Daniel Pink, Chimamanda Adichie, Julian Treasure. And I was like, maybe I should just send this video to these people that I reviewed and see if they have anything to say about it. So I reached out to Julian Treasure, who is across the pond in the UK. And I just sent it to him, said, hey, I did this review of your TED Talk. He's done many TED Talks. He's been one of the most watched TED Talkers ever. And he took the time to respond to me. Now, I don't know if he watched the whole thing. I didn't have very good video editing skills back then. It's not a great showcase of how to do YouTube or anything like that, but he's responded to my message, potentially watched the review, and was very gracious. He's a very understated kind of he's not British, I think. I think he's Irish or something. But anyway, and please forgive me if you're hearing this and you're like, no, he's not. I don't know what his nationality is. But he's a very gracious gentleman. He's very succinct in what he says. I actually appreciated his TED Talk of all of them. You usually get 18 minutes to speak. He spoke for 9. Yeah. And it was the most impactful TED Talk I had heard in probably forever. And he just released a new book as well about the power of listening. So he's a man after my own heart. But I really took the step. We talked about courageous steps, to reach out to him and say, hey, I did a review of your TED Talk. And he was gracious enough to say, thanks, Jenn, for writing. Thank you for doing this review. What a cool guy, right? When you reach out to people, you're like, oh, they're too big for me. They're too important. They're doing great things in this world. He took the time to respond. So take that step, even if you're not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah, don't let fear shut you down. You know, at the end of the day, we all breathe, we all eat, we all sleep the same way. Yes, they're further ahead. You know, don't catch comparisonitis.
It's hard not to, it's okay. We're all humans. Yes,
especially in this era.
We're all here. We're all doing this thing together.
You know, but battle it strongly, and take a step, take a bold step, because you never know what could happen. It could be a very positive step. And if nothing else, it's a positive step for you, because now you faced that fear and you took a step and you're like, I'm alive. I'm still alive.
You will 100% survive that bold move that you're thinking about, maybe procrastinating on. You have 100% survival rate to this day. You will keep surviving.
Yeah. All right. And I will put information for Jenn. And as I recall, when Jenn and I scheduled this, she has a gift for everybody. So that'll be in the show notes. So feel free to hit that link and get the gift that Jenn has provided so graciously. Thanks again, Jenn. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your time with me.
It's been a pleasure, Sean. And thank you for everyone who's been listening. I can't wait to see you on stage. Even if I don't see you, I can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Yes. Any parting words, Jenn, besides that wonderful, encouraging?
Yeah. Well, I would like to say there is a stage for everyone. This is what I tell my clients. This is what I tell my family. My stage may not look like yours, and yours may not look like mine. But just know that all of us are here to make an impact and have a message. You may not know what that message is. If you don't, there's support for that. But there is a stage for everyone. Are you ready to take the stage?
Your story could touch one life. There's somebody out there that will benefit from your story, your speaking. Whatever Jenn says, whatever your stage is, whether it's speaking up in a meeting or standing before a crowd in a stadium, Your message has meaning. Your life has meaning. Don't be afraid to share it. You're disrespecting those people out there by keeping it locked inside. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening to Daily Power Boost. Thanks again, Jen. Everybody, take care, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Daily Power Boost. Ignite your potential. Remember, transformation starts with action. So take today's insight, make it your own, and awaken your inner potential. Because remember, greatness begins within. Catch you tomorrow for your next Power Boost.